Okay, listeners, if you love us, we want to share with you about a fun and fellow podcast that you need to check out. It's called Back Alley Banter and is hosted by two fellow pod friends of ours named Kat and Maya. Just like us, they are real, candid, and talk about some relevant shit that will definitely make you think, but also have you laughing along with them. They are two flight attendants, one Canadian, one a South African. One raised by hippies in the 70s, the other grew up in a strict, conservative Christian household. Both have a lot to say, and they often don't see eye to eye, but they always agree to disagree and have each other giggle along the way. Kat and Maya always have a laugh while discussing the taboo, mainstream, and, well, everything else in between. It's genuinely like having two unedited gal friends alongside of you on an impromptu road trip. No rules, no destination, and always a good, unapologetic conversation with something to be learned along the way. And they give away free shit too, just for downloading or subscribing. So check out our buddies, Kat and Maya, on their podcast called Back Alley Banter. You can find them on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you find your podcasts. Simply search Back Alley Banter on your preferred podcast platform. You can also follow them on Instagram at Back Alley Banter and or friend them on Facebook at Kat and Maya as the first name and Back Alley Banter as the last name. Or if you want to connect with them on email, just send them an email at backalleybanter@gmail.com. Search, download, follow, or friend. That's Back Alley Banter on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. Santa Vergine, Padre Pio, Christ has died.
Christ is risen. Christ will come again.
Welcome back to Not For Anything podcast with Jess and Ju. Today we are with Jesus, but we are always with Jesus as we discuss Catholicism. Bit of a touchy subject, I think, in our lives, but it's an important conversation that we have sorry, I just made out with my microphone, literally all the time.
We do. I think we harbor a lot of resentment and we have a lot of questions that we're still asking ourselves. And I don't know for you, but, you know, my mom is also like Irish Catholic, and we have a lot of like resentment.
Sorry, for those of you wondering, I just did like the largest sneeze known to man on camera. So we're just trying to gather ourselves.
Your soul ejected from your body and came back in. Like
the power of Christ was not compelling me, if you would.
Oh my God. Okay.
As you were saying, apologies.
But we harbor a lot of resentment. So Julia and I both come from Catholic backgrounds, and I think you and I both have like still a lot of resentment and questions about our faith and, you know, it's like getting into spirituality and what that means for us now. There's a lot going on, and my mom is Irish Catholic, and I talked to her about this kind of stuff too. I'm just like, you know, how did you come to terms with the fact that our faith says this about this? And she says that she still struggles with a lot of it and doesn't quite know how to reconcile like these sort of contradictions and like things that she doesn't really believe in. And but she is sort of like the example for me that you can still be like in your 50s and not understand like what it means to be a Catholic, and how disappointing I think that is, because I'm someone who's very like by the book. And I think my biggest problem is that when you can't get on board with what the book says, but you feel like you're supposed to be following it, you're like wrestling with, do I give it up altogether, or do I like dive in head first and just go for all of it? Because this whole 75% that I'm on board with, like, it just isn't working, and I don't think it's practical.
Well, that's exactly it, right? And I think, again, your mom is like amazing, icon, perfect, talented, like never the same, always creative, like my superhero. But your mom is just like, again, an example of one of those people that like is always reflecting. And I think that with religion in general, it's like there's not supposed to be clear-cut answers. And this is what I think, you know, we talk about Catholicism being like this, but I think a lot of like religions are like this, where just like, oh, if I'm Jewish, I practice this and only this, and if I'm Buddhist, I only believe this, and I can't believe this, even though Buddhist isn't really like that strict. It's pretty like easy to like love who you love. Anyways, and Catholicism's like that too, right? People are like, if I'm Catholic, I can't be XYZ, but or Christian even too, which is like another domination, Protestant. You know, you see so many conflicts, both like people have with themselves as well as like with others. Obviously, like religion is such a big thing that tears countries, nations apart. But it's important that it's not black and white, and there's supposed to be time for that reflection. Like, you're not supposed to understand everything, and like, if you're one of those people that can just like give into it 100%, like you were saying, then like, as we say sarcastically in my house, like, aguri, good for you, like, congrats, you can do that. But it's not clear cut that way. And I think a lot of people that just do give into it 100% are either completely devoted, like completely believe in everything that says, or they're kind of just the person that's like more so like my parents, where it's like, I was raised with it, I really don't care about it, it's just what I know, and I'm not really gonna argue with it. It's like a comfort thing, or like an indifference thing versus a passion thing.
Yeah, for sure. And like, oh my God, like you said so many great things there, because it's like,
thank you.
You're welcome. But I think, yeah, there are different types of Catholics, but I've really never met one, or Christian really, I've never met one that is, how do I explain this? It's like, yeah, they're on board with it, but more because they're not thinking about it that much. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
They accept it as part of their life, but they don't accept it as their way of life. And that is, as much as they would probably hate to admit it, a half-assed way of participating in our faith and our religion. Because it's just like, it's like, how do you just ignore what some of the Bible says, and like what some of our, like, the church as like an institution is saying? How do you ignore it, but then also feel so comfortable like attending church like every Sunday? And it's, I don't know, I've never met one Catholic who says, you know what, I don't go by the Bible, I go by this, or I don't go by the, like, people are just like so wishy-washy, or I think they're so overcome with Catholic guilt, which we'll talk about later, that they just feel like they can't ask questions.
Yeah.
Don't ask the hard questions, just accept it as what it is.
Yeah.
And that's it. And both of those types of people I don't consider to be real Catholics, because it's like, that's so, it's half-assed either way.
Yeah, I think, and you know, I had a similar experience with like my religious journey, because it flipped and flopped. It was like when, for those of you who don't know, when you're Catholic, and also if you're not in the province of Ontario, so I believe Catholic schools are funded by the government, by the people, by taxes, only in Ontario.
Only in Ontario?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That might have to be a fact check thing later, but I'm pretty sure that that's what that is. That's what it is. So anyway, and as you can, like, we've talked about it in different podcasts that we went to Catholic school, and we, you know, we've brought it up like a million times, but when you're in grade 8, you get confirmed. Oh, sorry. Let me start at the very beginning. So you get baptized. And then when you're in grade 2, like when you're about 7 years old, you have your first confirmation. And that's when you have the Eucharist for the first time. You do confession for the first time. You learn what it basically means to like be bad and to sin. And then I almost said when you're 8. When you're in grade 8, you're around 14 years old. You do your confirmation, which is you get anointed with oil, which is a sacrament, ? And then you get married. And then I'm trying to think your other.
Is one of the sacraments. Then all the sacraments after that, I have no idea, because it's correct me if I'm wrong, but it's something like, if you're not going to get married, then you have to live a life of like servitude or something. Like, I don't know. There's rules, basically, is what we're trying to say. That's so stupid.
Yeah.
But I think confirmation is even younger now. It's grade 7.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just like a convenience thing, like, because schools are like, I'm not paying for grad and confirmation, whatever. But yeah, I think the whole like marriage thing is so people don't have sex if they're not married, which is like whatever. And then it's you get your last rites when you're like on your deathbed, and that's your last sacrament. And then it's your second last, I guess. And then before you're buried, if you have a Catholic burial at your funeral, they anoint the casket one more time. And then I think that's the whole pyramid of it. Anyway, so when I was going for my confirmation, I was now in grade 8. Like, religion, I guess, when you're that young, you like don't really like pay attention to it that much, like growing up until my confirmation. And then when I started going to church regularly, because you have to for your confirmation, I would call myself like a crazy Catholic, because I literally felt the Holy Spirit through my like entire body, through my veins. And I tried to carry like some of that with me till high school. But by the time I was in grade 10, I was like, because like at that point I was starting to like understand like what Catholicism like actually believes, not just what like I was reflecting on like teachings to believe. You know what I mean? Like it was a personal thing for me, which is again also what I think religion is about. But like just in the environment we were learning in, it was very much, if you're not Catholic if you do XYZ. So by the time I was in grade 11 or 10, I started looking into world religions. I really was like having like a religious crisis, to be honest, because I went from like being like pretty like confident in my values of like God and like morals and all that stuff, to now I was like, maybe I'm Jewish. Maybe I believe in like Judaism and like those teachings, or maybe I'm actually a bit of Buddhist. And then I ultimately came to one realization when like studying all these different world religions. I was like, each one teaches to love each other the way you would love yourself, is to treat others the way you want to be treated. So I personally couldn't understand all the like division that was happening. So I was like, I don't think I identify with any religion. I think I always used to say, and this is where it sounds wishy-washy, that I was raised on Catholic values and Catholic teachings in the sense of like morals from the Bible, meaning like help those who are poor or the less fortunate, like be humble, like that, like the Beatitudes, I think they're fucking called, be compassionate, like have all that shit. And then I was just like, I don't want to identify with Catholicism because I don't identify with all of Catholicism. So I say I was raised by it, but I don't identify with it. In fact, I don't identify with any religion. I identify with like some spirituality, but apart from that, I'm like, I the religion in general has like such harsh binaries that I'm like, I'm religion fluid. Can I say that, or is that problematic?
That's so funny.
But
that's going to be in our teaser. I'm religion fluid.
I'm religion fluid. But it's true. Like after learning about all of them, like my grade 11 world religions teachers was a monk. So he actually had a very unbiased opinion of all of it, because like all the religions he was teaching us, even though he was a Christian monk, because he's like, I spent my time studying other religions. So I actually know what they're talking about. And I mean, granted, his teachings had to be filtered through the Catholic school board lens. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is that identifying with religion can be difficult, especially when, again, the impression is you either go in all the way, or you're indifferent, or you're just like wishy-washy. Like it's a tough journey to be on, but because it's first, like, it's so important to like me, but it might not be important to someone like my parents who like don't care about it. But as like an identity thing, religion and belief and faith have always been like very important to me.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I think for me, like, let's just start at the beginning. So
it's a very good place to start.
Baptism. Like, I feel like I don't want to sound condescending, but we'll try to like spell things out for people who like actually have no idea. But the idea with baptism is that you, as a baby, are born in sin. Let's start with that.
Yeah, like I literally have never understood that. I've never.
Anyways, I don't. And same here. It's like I'm a very like observant person. I guess I've always been that way, and so like even as a kid, I always just used to like look at things that were happening in our faith, and I'm like, why? That doesn't make any sense to me. And like nothing changed. I was waiting for the day when things would finally click, and I'd be like, oh, that's what this is. Because I think, and this might be a thing like for every kid who was raised in whatever religion, but like you want your religion to be right. Like you want to be on board with it. You know what I mean? You don't want to look for reasons to like start hating it and turn away and whatever. Like no one wants that. But eventually, like, your brain has to enter the conversation and be like, that doesn't make any sense. So with the whole baptism thing, you're born in sin. First of all, most Catholic kids that are born after their parents have been married, which you're not allowed to have sex before marriage, and then you're supposed to, like, what's the verse? Be fruitful and multiply. So you're supposed to have kids once you're married.
Yeah.
Okay. So our parents did everything right to have us, but then we as babies
Mm-hmm.
are still born in sin. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. But then you're baptized, and immediately you are like invited into the Catholic Church. You're seen as a legitimate member at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Consent? Who? I don't know her. I
It's
don't
like
know
being
consent.
ninered. It's almost like being ninered. You know when you're in grade 9 and there's initiation for like going into high school? That's kind of what like being baptized is. You're a baby and then you get like drowned for like a hot second in holy water and you're like, okay.
They take you for
That's
a dip.
yeah, literally. That's what being baptized is like looking at it now.
Yeah, so it just never made sense to me. Because I was like, how is it we're born in sin even when our parents did everything right? Fine.
Yeah.
But and I didn't like that we couldn't choose our own religion. I never liked that. So my perspective, for those who don't know, haven't listened to our previous podcast episodes, I'm adopted, right? And so I've always had the inner me adopted, never, but I've always had the inner monologue of why am I Catholic? Like my parents are. This is what they're doing. But how do I don't know if I'm Catholic, you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's this whole culty thing with religion where like everybody thinks that their religion is the one that's right and we are the chosen ones. If you're Catholic, then you shall inherit the kingdom of heaven. If you're Buddhist, then you're going to do this. If you're, you know what I mean? Like everyone
Mm-hmm.
thinks that they're going to experience the best form of the afterlife, whatever. But yeah, I was always just like very at war with myself because I didn't feel like I belonged. I was just like, I could be anything. I could be Jewish. I could be in like all the other ways my life could have turned out. Why am I here? Like, this is so
Mm-hmm.
weird to me. And yeah, I didn't like that I didn't get to choose. And my biggest regret is honestly my confirmation because I feel like you don't have time to really think about it. Like, you just feel like this is what everyone's doing, so I guess this is what we're supposed to do right now.
Yeah.
But confirmation is basically when you're 14, which what the hell do you know at 14? You are declaring that you are going to be a Catholic from now on. Like by your own like consent and consideration,
Yeah.
you have decided that you are on board with Catholicism and are expected to follow out, you know, all the rules that we have. You should be at church every Sunday now that you've been confirmed. You should, like when you have children, they should be baptized. Like you set
Mm-hmm.
yourself up for all these rules and it's the biggest trap because you're 14. Like
Yeah.
you've never been taught anything different in your entire life, especially if you went to Catholic school. Like
Yep.
that's what all your friends are doing, and then you get to world religions 3 years later and you're like, what have I done?
Yeah.
What have I done? um but yeah, and then so there's two things with that. There's the whole baby baptism thing, and then there's the fact that like one of the Bible verses that I read, which shattered me as a prepubescent child, was that bastard children um are not welcome in the kingdom of heaven. I
Mm-hmm.
was born out of wedlock.
Mm-hmm.
So to know that the Bible says to me that because I was born, even though I've been Catholic, I was raised Catholic, I did all the things I was supposed to do, I'm still not allowed in.
Mm.
Bullshit. You know what I mean? It's all
Yeah.
just like none of it makes any sense. And for me, that was kind of a turning point where I was just like, what's the point? Nothing's ever
Yeah.
good enough. Oh my God. It's like we're all expected to sin and like, you know, it's like love the sinner, hate the sin, but everyone's going to make a
Yeah.
mistake in their life. But then some sins are just unforgivable. Like there's
Yeah.
venial sins and there's mortal sins, whatever.
Yeah. There's so many. It's like, oh my God, just don't be a fucking shitty person.
But some of them are just unforgivable. It doesn't matter like if you're sorry or whatever. It's God's judgment up to that point if you're going to be like let into heaven or whatever.
Yeah. It's far too much for a 14-year-old to comprehend because again, like you don't know anything, especially if you go to Catholic school, you don't know anything else. And like the students who I remember, I remember in my class, there were a few students that didn't get, I almost said baptized, get confirmed, and they're like ostracized because they're like, oh, they're not getting confirmed. Like, what's wrong with them? Blah, 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 blah. Because they're such like, I don't know. It's like you're either in it or you're not in it, and like that's just what they preach. And like
Yeah.
you're right in the sense of like there's this moment where you're like, hello, nothing makes sense. And like reading or like coming to understand Bible verses also growing up, it's like I like then came to realize, I was like, the Bible is essentially a game of broken telephone written by men, which I mean, like, is a separate conversation on its own, but I don't have enough like academia in me to argue that. But you know, it's something to be noted, definitely. But also, like, the whole teaching of like nobody is perfect except for God. It's like, okay, but if people who aren't perfect are writing the Bible, the thing that we're going to be like referencing, even though they received word from God who is perfect, but it's still like a game of broken telephone. But these are the words we're living by. There's no bias in it, like, whatsoever, right? Like, that's, it's like that very simple thought process. I was like, this makes no fucking sense. I was like, I'm out. That was when I was like, I'm out. I don't fucking do it. Not for me. Not for me. Not for me.
Yeah, it's just the simple contradictions of just like, Jesus tells you to love everyone, love your neighbor as I would love you, da 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 da. But we hate the gays. Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand that at all. Accept everyone for who they are, but not the gays.
Not the gays.
Don't let the gays anywhere near. Like, none of it lines up, and that's why I just really feel like I've never met a Catholic who is using their full brain. They just they just ignore some parts, or just like say like, that's what the faith says, even if that's not what I believe in. It's like, okay, but if that's not what you believe in, then you're not a Catholic, so stop calling yourself that. But like, I just, everyone has a different way of like reading into it, right? Because there are some Catholics who say the Bible is just, you're supposed to interpret every verse. What can we interpret from this verse in the Bible? And then there are others who say like, no, that's what it says. Like, it's black and white, like, just, you know, accept that sentence for what it is. And then you get into the different translations where like some words were changed, so you're not even sure. It just becomes this like abstract like sentence where you don't even know what it means anymore.
Yep.
And if everything's up for interpretation, then
what's the fucking point?
Then what's the point? Literally, what's the point if it's all up for interpretation?
Like, I don't, like, again, you're right. Like, I don't understand. If it is all up for interpretation, then like literally what is the point of all of this? But yeah, it's a difficult thing to comprehend, because even stuff like, and you know, it depends on, I think a lot of it depends on too, like what priest you have, or pastor, which is pastor's not a part of Catholicism. Pastor is Christianity, ?
Yeah, the pastors I think can get married.
Yeah, again, like
but then there are some priests can't get married.
So I that I don't understand. Anyways, but yeah, like just some of them interpret it in a very like modern progressive like way, which is, I mean, not familiar to me, unfortunately. But you know, we've had experience with a priest that literally is like a cult leader and like uses the church to fund like Christian camps and all this other, like, do you remember the revolution I started in our assembly in grade 12? I've told you about it like a million times, where like the priest was talking about, fuck it, he's not going to listen to this. Father Mario was talking about euthanasia and how it's, if you believe in euthanasia, then you are not Catholic, and you need to write a letter to Justin Trudeau to have him make it illegal in the country. And if you don't do that, you're not a Catholic. And I was sitting there with like a group of people in this assembly, like really pissed off, because then he started going about like how ignorant young people are and like going on about women. And I was like, bro. Yeah. And
like, by the way, this is like, so he was the priest that would come to our high school, but he was my priest in like my neighborhood, because Julia and I live, Julia has a different priest where she lives. And, but Father Mario was mine. Yeah. So that's what I was dealing with every Sunday, by the way. That's who I got confirmed by. He was crazy.
Yeah, and we were, the group that was sitting with me around, like, we were all getting really upset about it. We didn't stand up the whole mass. Like, we weren't listening to him. Like, we didn't walk out, but we chose to, like, sit down as a form of, like, protest. And we got, like, teachers were like, stand up. It's a sign of disrespect. And I was like, that was a sign of disrespect. And anyways. But you know what I mean? Like, some are so culty that way, where it's, like, black or white. If you don't do this, you're not a part of the religion. And that, I think, causes so many people to, like, hate religion in general because of those strict binaries that you're like, what's the point? Yeah. Is there anything? Yep. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, is there anything you like about Catholicism?
Yeah, that was the question I was going to have for us, because I feel like you and I have been we're always so honest with each other, and like
Yeah.
we definitely have moments where we just feel like we are hanging on by a thread,
Mm-hmm.
and all we have to like look to is what we came from as kids, and just being like, please, if you're up there, give me a break. Please, like, help me. Like, I don't know. Or like talking to our angels, our guardian angels, our
Mm-hmm.
ancestors, people that have died. Like, just we look for anything to like get us through to the next day.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why faith was even started in the first place, is because we're far too fragile as humans. We feel like we need something bigger than us to feel like there's someone in control that
Right.
isn't us,
Right.
because we feel so out of control.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, and this is just my disposition, I'm not saying it to like, like what's it called, like gas myself up or
Mm-hmm.
anything, but I am someone that was very, very by the book, and like I take things, I'm very sensitive, and I take when I don't know, like everything just feels really important to me. And so I never like my faith was something where I took it seriously,
Mm-hmm.
whereas I saw the way everyone around me didn't.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't that big a deal, whereas I was stressed out about it.
Yes.
I
Yes.
was like, no, guys, seriously, like, we're gonna go to hell. Like, I was so stressed out about it, and like wanted to be the perfect Catholic. And
Mm-hmm.
then, yeah, grade 10 gave up. I was like, fuck this. This
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. But because I was like that, uh, there was just a lot of fear. And I feel like the good thing about it is I carry all those attributes of like how to be a good person. What does it mean to be a friend? What does it mean to be a child to a parent? Like, I I feel like my personality, I was molded, to be a good person,
Mm-hmm.
and my moral compass feels very settled
Yeah.
in terms of like what I value and all that. But I feel like a lot of it comes from just being scared. And I wish I could see in an alternate universe a place where I was raised without religion, and see if I was just as good a person without
Yeah.
it. Because
I
I feel like I'm just scared. Like, am I just acting on, it's a survival thing. Like we were just told, like, don't lie, that's bad. That's bad. That's a sin. And so you're like 7 and you're like, okay, you know?
Yeah, like I think, and we talked about this in our Halloween episode where we were talking about demons, and how like that relates to religion a little bit. But,
Yeah.
um, yeah, like same thing as you. I feel very comfortable with my moral compass. I'm very confident in what I know, what is wrong versus what's not wrong, what's moral versus what isn't. But same thing is like I learned out of fear, and I think the better way to teach kids about not lying, about sharing, about helping people who are in a different position than you is like explaining, like it's management 101 is like the
Mm-hmm.
why behind the what. Why is it bad to lie? Not because it's a sin. I mean, if that's what you're going to like, that's what was told to us. You're like, oh, because if I lie, I'm going to hell. It's like, no, because when you lie, you actually hurt people, and hurting people does this and this to them when you can easily tell the truth and blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? That's where it needs to start. And I don't blame, again, I don't blame like my parents really, because it's like they just were kind of fucking going with the flow, figuring out how to be a parent. Like they didn't really care too much about religion. Like it wasn't as effective to them as it is to you and me.
Yeah.
Whereas like I like lay in bed at night being like, how the fuck am I gonna teach my kids what to believe in? Like, do I just throw them into Catholic school and be like, this is what you're gonna learn, but then when you're 14 you're gonna stop? And like we're like, I believe the term I'm looking for is what's the line,
Yeah.
and how do you teach kids about different religions so they can develop their own sense of faith?
And I don't want to be flippant about it. Like, you and I really are, for the people that are listening to this, we really are stressed about this. I want everyone to understand the weight, because it is, it goes back to what we said on our girl episode. I don't even remember what it's called. But when we were talking about like feeling like the time's running out, and like we have to figure out if we want kids now and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's figuring out if you want kids, and then there's okay, so you want them, how are you going to raise them? Because I don't want my kids getting baptized. I don't want them thinking that they have to participate in something. They want to get baptized when they're 30, go get baptized. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, go for it.
fulfill all your sacraments as you want to fulfill them. But I don't want to just throw them into this and make them think that, like, I never want them to feel the way I felt as a kid, where I was just petrified. Just absolutely petrified that I was always doing something wrong. And I think there's also this, like, weird invasion of privacy that isn't discussed with, like, did you have to read,
yes!
Did you have
to
read, yeah, don't worry. Did you have to read 1984 in high school?
No, actually, I didn't.
You didn't?
But I know what it's about.
Yeah. So, 1984, we know there's Big Brother who's always watching, and it's a society where, like, no one's allowed to do anything that isn't following the rules, whatever, and you're always being watched.
Yeah.
And as a kid, to be told that God is always watching you and feeling like you can't make a mistake, you can't do something without anybody seeing, like, feeling like you just can't mess up because he's always watching you. That is a heavy thing to carry as a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
That's a lot. You know what I mean? And
that's a lot for anybody, let alone a child. Like, I mean, I don't carry that weight on my back of God is watching me, but, like, as an 8-year-old, if you were, like, didn't make the best decision at recess or whatever, you're like, oh fuck, that's it, I'm done I'm going
I'm done. That's it for me. Then
that's it, I'm done. And yeah, it's a scary and very heavy pressure to have on you. And, like, even this idea of, like, purgatory, which I didn't learn about till I was, like, in high school. I had no idea what purgatory was for the longest time.
Really?
I had no fucking clue. No one taught it to me, because they didn't talk about it at church, and or maybe I missed it. I don't fucking know. But, like, and even when I go to church, purgatory is not, like, discussed about. When I go to church, if I don't catch it in flames, like,
when Victoria and I were, like, in grade 7, we both agreed that we were going to spend time in purgatory.
Yeah, we may as well just do that. We're always so busy now. Let's just make an appointment to hang out when we're in purgatory, and we'll call it even.
Okay, see you in purgatory, eh?
But even then, of just, like, you can do everything to your power, but at the end of the day, your life is not in your own hands. That's a pretty dark thought to have as a 15-year-old.
But what do you mean? Like,
understanding that even if you practice Catholicism, if you do everything right, it still might not be good enough. Like you were saying before, like, you can do everything right, but if you're waiting in purgatory, the final call's not up to you, despite everything what you've tried to do. Maybe that fucking time you were mean at recess at 7 years old, like, God shows you the receipt and is like, what about this motherfucker? Like, you know what I mean? And he expects you to explain it. Like, that kind of pressure, I was like, what the fuck did I sign up for? Do you want to explain
what purgatory is, though, just so people can follow and, like, know what you're talking about?
Oh, I'm not even quite sure I know what purgatory is. It's the lobby. It's the waiting room before you go to heaven or hell, as far as I understand it. It's like...
But it's a place where you are spending time and sort of repenting for your sins. So you can be there for half an eternity, essentially, until you are granted access.
Yeah.
Or you might just go straight to hell. Like...
Yeah.
But
that's fucked to think about.
Well, we have a saying in my house that I was raised with. Oh, purgatory. Pfft, child's play. Purgatory. Whenever I was stressed about something or, you know, angry, like anxious, whatever, upset, my mom would just say, offer it up to the souls in purgatory. Because, that's, I'm telling you, when you and Julian never, like, really, you're like, your parents are so cool and, like, laid back, whatever. I'm like, you don't understand the Catholic veins running through my mother's body. But it's because her mother used to say it to her, and it's basically just a way of saying, like, there are people suffering who, you know, like, that are in a worse position than, like, you are. But yeah, purgatory. Here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Here's the thing.
You can do... Well, it depends, because I would say, like, when people think that they're doing everything right, so, like, let's take sex before marriage. We can also talk off camera about, or off the record about this. Mm-hmm. But the whole sex before marriage thing, we don't think that's such a big deal.
I did when I was 14, but I don't anymore.
Right. But that's still not considered you being a good person, you know? So even though you might think, but I've done everything basically right, I'm not a bad person, you still didn't follow the rules, so you still deserve it. Like, that's the whole thing, is that your life is in your hands. Your will, like, free will, it is in your hands. It's all up to you to be making those decisions. God's not the one guiding you to those decisions. You have all the power. But that's what's so upsetting, that your actions don't have, having sex before marriage has no negative impact on another person, on your parents, on yourself, if you know, as long as you're like doing it, you know. But it has no like impact. So why should you burn in hell for that is beyond me.
Yeah.
But it's a rule, and if you break it, then God's going to be mad at you. And I don't understand how it can be that simple when you're not doing it to be a bad person. You're not doing it like, but they stress it so much in Catholic school.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
kids,
well,
remain celibate till marriage. Like,
do you remember in grade 9, I don't remember if you were in my religion class or not, but our religion teacher, I think we had the same one, said if you have sex before marriage, you will get genital herpes and you will die. No, you won't die. You will get, that's from Mean Girls. You will get genital herpes. We were like, what? She's
we
like,
were in
yeah.
religion together?
We may have not been. We may have not been.
I don't think we were, no.
Okay, but she said, if you have sex before marriage, you will get genital herpes because that is not your husband. You don't know who they are. You're going to get an STD. And we were like, huh? How the
Was
fuck?
that Miss Matthews?
No, it was Miss Wong.
Yeah, no, I didn't have her.
I was like, how the fuck does that make sense? But there are some things that I do that Catholicism taught me that I still continue to practice. Like, I used to pray every night until I was 16, but it stopped becoming about prayer and started becoming about reflection and about speaking to my ancestors and like talking to my spirit guides and like sort of that thing. And I don't do it as often as I wish now, but when I need comfort, I still find myself going to that like solitude moment of reflection and kind of just like connecting with spirituality in general. And like I do it when
you've only done that within the last like year or whatever, right? Because I was spiritual like maybe around 2 years ago, but I remember you weren't quite there yet. Like
I
this
wasn't.
was only.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
It was more so like it was still like a moment. It became more spiritual in that sense, but it was still like a moment of like reflection to myself outwards too, because
Right.
I always had faith to some power, but I couldn't identify what it is. So
Sure.
I would just kind of like throw it out there when I felt like most helpless. And like
Yeah.
oftentimes like it was like when I would watch something or see something, witness something that was completely out of my control that I wanted to help with, but I couldn't. Like if I felt bad for a kid at school and I didn't know how to help them, or if I watched a documentary about like fucking, I don't know, like a psychopath, like murdering people, like Ted Bundy, like murdering a bunch of women, murdering kids, like that kind of thing. I would like reflect on it that night and be like, I hope they're okay. And I kind of would like pray for their souls in that way of like, I hope they're at peace, and like kind of just reflecting, sorry life had to happen that way for you, like that kind of. That's the only thing I think I still practice that's like Catholic / faithful / spiritual. Again, religion fluid. There's no like real set stone what it actually is.
For sure. Yeah. Like I don't know if it's so much a practice as it is a way of being, just like a way of life. Like the Catholic sort of spirit in me is definitely still there in terms of thinking about other people, putting them first, you know, like not being like so like just, you know, like obsessed with like yourself and your problems. Like the world is so much bigger, and like counting your blessings, having gratitude, like all that kind of stuff is still my way of life, and I owe it to, I think, my Catholic background. I can't quite say for sure in the alternate universe where Jess is maybe still a good person. I don't know. But yeah, I just feel like I hate the fact that I'm still sort of half-assing it, because let's say that we were right and there is a God and the Catholics were right. We got it all. We nailed it, guys, to the cross. We nailed it. But okay, POV, I get to heaven, right? God's looking at me. POV, I'm in heaven. And God's talking to me, and he's like, Jessica, you did your best, but why did you have a gay friend? I'm very disappointed in you. At that point, I just don't even, if that's your heaven, I don't want it. You know what I
Yeah, I don't
mean?
want to be there.
Like,
That's not my kind of heaven.
and that's the thing is that I feel like with God, you want him to be perfect to you, not to like this institution and something that you never even like something that we don't even fully know anything about. Like, I still don't know that much about our Catholic faith, but I'm expected to, but they don't teach us anything.
Yeah.
And then what? I'm supposed to get to heaven and God's going to be disappointed in me cuz I did like everything wrong. Like, it's so frustrating because I'm like, if we're all made in your divine ass image and, everyone's here for a reason, everyone has a purpose and a soul path or whatever, then why did you create sexuality in the first place? Like, this is your fucking fault, bro.
Yeah, it's your fucking fault.
This is your fault. If you don't want it, why'd you make it? You know what I mean?
I think I'm going to say something that my teachers in elementary school used to say to me, but they used to say, God is in here.
God
He's in your heart.
No. God is
God
in
is
Mother
yours.
Mario's ass. Like, that's where God is.
So then, okay, so with that in mind, how is anybody in this world, in this fucking world that's on fire, literally and figuratively, is controlled by tyrants, is experiencing famine and poverty? How is someone, and a pandemic, how is someone supposed to be a Catholic in this year? Or how is anybody supposed to have faith in anything?
Yeah.
At this time?
Well, here's the thing with that. Even when I was little, I remember hearing that argument all the time. Like, really, where is God? People are dying on the streets. There's da-da-da-da. Where is God? And I always thought that was really lazy because I'm like, well, God created the world that's perfect, but human beings aren't perfect, and he put them on the world. So we're the ones fucking everything up, and I think he is challenging us to clean it up and make it better. Like, the problems that are happening to the world are quite literally our fault, not his fault. So I never really understood that argument. I just thought it was lazy. I'm like,
that's lame, and that's lame.
That's like
There you go. That one's a throwback Thursday.
That's lame. Oh my god, you just took me back.
Thank you. Some trauma on this fine evening.
That's lame, and that's lame. You're
Society,
16.
that's lame, and that's lame. So you still, hold on, sorry, pause. You still believe in God? It's not still. You believe in God.
I believe in a greater power, but you can call it whatever. The universe, God, the creator, source. People have different names. But the creator. I believe this was all created with a divine purpose, divine plan, and it's up to us to seek out our purpose, our path, but the thing with the whole, like, what really I struggle with now is like the big topics: gay rights, women's rights, euthanasia, all that stuff. Because with the gays, our good friends, if it's not a choice, sexuality is not a choice. It's just the way you are. And they're here, and they're these divine beings that are put on the planet, and they are beautiful and lovely and good and are friends. Why do they not even have a chance?
Yeah.
It's the same way I feel about being a bastard child. I don't even have a chance. I didn't ask to be created. I didn't I'm just here.
Yeah.
I am just here, and they are also just here. And everyone just wants to be loved, and it's not a choice. Then they should be allowed to seek out their happiness. And I don't understand what the point is in their being here if they don't even have a chance.
Yeah.
Is God's challenge for them, well, I'm going to put you on this earth, and we're going to see if you can never fall in love. That's your challenge.
Good luck.
What kind of bullshit is that?
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Like, no, thank you. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Obviously I agree. I am just like reflecting on that and thinking, who the fuck was the person that was like, you know what we need to do? we need to create a camp so we can teach them how to love a woman and not another man. That's what we need to do. I want to know which Karen came up with that idea first and was like, that's what God would want us to do. Hurt other men.
Therapy. Like, I don't
like,
even...
you know what I mean? There's so many things that just, it's contradictory to like what you said we're originally taught, like to treat others the way you want to be treated.
Okay, so then the next thing would be like abortion, right? Where it's like, and sex before marriage as well, because it's like, what if you're raped? That's your fault?
Yeah.
I don't understand that at all.
Yeah.
So you lose your virginity because you were raped, you get pregnant, have a baby out of wedlock. There's so many, like...
Hold on. And it's also, the Bible teaches that it's your fault as women, like this, obviously, because there's like all these modesty things, right? So that's where the idea of like, if you're dressed like a slut, then I'm using that in air quotes. If you're dressed like a slut or not modestly, then you're kind of asking for it to be raped because you're being promiscuous. That's why there's dress codes in school. That's why there's dress codes when you go to church. It's because it's like, you can't, my fucking, if my shoulder is going to cause someone to rape me, I think the other person needs help, not me. Because really.
But also God made our bodies and we should treat them like the temples they are.
Right.
So,
right.
But don't show them any, like, what is happening?
Like it doesn't make sense. Sorry, fucking that gets me heated because as a kid I was always busty and I would always get in trouble for like low shirts or having cleavage, but I would have like a fucking shirt up to here and still have cleavage, and it was literally not my fault. It was just what it was, and it was always a problem. And I'm like, if people are looking at me because of a body part, that has nothing to do with me. This is my body. This is what it is. If they're fucking distracted of school, of like their morals because of my body, that's on them. They need to figure their shit out, not me.
For sure, that is their issue.
It all fucking combines because it obviously puts women, like it degrades women and it makes them like less important and inferior, which of course we already know, but it all fucking ties in because it's always like, it was your fault then if you were raped. It was, if you get an abortion, that's a choice that you are making and you're killing a baby, like, you know what I mean? It's like, holy fuck, you can literally never do anything right.
Yeah.
And also it's problematic to begin with.
And the thing is that you can do, like, you have free will. Like, I'm not, it's not that I'm agreeing with it. I'm just saying, like, what they're advocating for is, well, if you did all those things, then you would have no reason to be like complaining. You would have no reason to feel like you're in the wrong.
Right.
But if you're wearing a tank top and you know that, like, even though that's not your belief system, that is other people's belief system, and that is the faith you're in's belief system, then you are setting yourself up in this way to be wrong.
Correct.
But it's just not fair. That's the thing. It's not fair. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
And
it's a thing of like, well, you knew the consequences and you did it anyway.
You knew the consequences and you did it anyway. And it's, I can't. I hate that none of it makes sense because I feel so lost, like we were saying, and I feel like I'm going to have to teach my children one day what to think, and I have no idea what to tell them because I don't even know what to think at this point.
There's so many problems, Jess. There's so many problems with it. And like, I honestly wish I knew more about what other religions think about all these topics, because I know like some of them are the same and some of them are different, but it's very difficult to find unbiased like research on it unless it's like,
because religion isn't unbiased. Religion is biased.
Yeah.
And like, but that's the thing, like all religions basically say the same thing. But it's just, I wouldn't even feel comfortable converting. I would feel like even that's a sin, to be like stepping away from the church that I was raised in. You know what I mean? Which, like, the fact that you can't even feel like you have the right to seek happiness if you're a Catholic, whatever that means to you to be happy, you don't have the right to pursue it if it's against what the Bible and church is saying. That is so unfair.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is also is like, the advertisements are the same, right? Oh, we like love everyone. We want to respect everyone and accept everybody, but the terms and conditions are different. And that's the most difficult part of it all, is like, you gotta fucking read through the 52 pages of the terms and conditions to understand what you're fully getting yourself into. That's why it's really difficult for a lot of people to just be in it all the way, or that's why a lot of people are like disconnected and indifferent with it. So they just have something to identify themselves with, but they might not actually like believe it if they did the research on it.
Yeah. And I think, like, just for me, because I also went through a very similar journey to you, where I was always really observant and really confused as a kid I remember, like, being in grade 8, and my teacher was telling us, like, as you go through confirmation, the last thing that you need to know and understand, it was, like, one of the, I don't even know what you call it anymore, but I remember it was, like, number 8, and it was fear of God. That is, like, one of the components to confirmation. Right. And I literally raised my hand in Miss Gallow's grade 8 class, and I was like, sorry, what?
Afraid of who?
Fear of God. And she was like, yes. And I was like, why does God want me to be afraid of him? What kind of a God is that? And she was like, because he wants you to respect him and see that he is more powerful than you are. And I was like,
and I think that very sentence that your teacher told you is what encapsulates Catholicism as a whole, of what I was like,
that sounds like God has a small dick, but it's fine.
So the episode is called God Has a Small Dick, and
I think God has a small dick.
But like, it's an ongoing reflection and journey, and like we brought it up so many times in other podcasts that like it's time that we've addressed it. But it's, again, like, we're curious about everyone else's experience and want to know, like, if you've had similar experiences to us, if you identify with a different religion, like, we also want to know what that experience is like. So, like, please DM us, email us, because we are trying to like become the fully realized versions of ourselves. And again, like, I can't agree with Jess more when she's like, we literally stress about this. Like, I can't sleep at night because I'm like, how am I going to raise my child one day?
Yeah.
How is a little kid supposed to like learn and grow and thrive when they can't identify?
Like, I feel like I was destined for hell by the time I was 12.
Yes.
Like, that's it for me then. That's it.
I was done. By the time I was 12, I was done. No, maybe like more like 15.
Yeah, I was like 15. I was like, this I clearly do not listen, I'm not hitting the standard.
If you and I mean, I'm still very surprised of when I walk into a church for like literally any reason, if I'm going to a funeral or wedding or whatever, and I don't catch on fire, I'm like, what a good day. But I think me too. I think if you and I went together, I think God would be like, God, like, what do you expect me to do now? You guys are both here. This is too much evil power for me to just bear. And he would just be like, zeep, and we'd be on fire. But again, it's an ongoing journey, and we're like so interested to continue learning. So if you have any experiences or resources that you know are unbiased, we like definitely want them. So please send them our way.
I think a great way to end this. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. The mystery of faith. Mm-hmm. Ding, 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 ding. Body of Christ. Ding, 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 ding.
I just want to do the whole thing. That's how I want to end the podcast. What's when he's holding it? This is my body, which has been given up for you. Ding, 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 ding.
Oh no! And then he took the bread, gave it to his friends.
He broke the bread, gave it to his disciples, and said, "Take this, all of you, and eat of it. This is my body, which has been given up for you."
Ding, 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 ding.
Oh my God.
Hey everybody, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Remember, Jesus will take the wheel, and we'll be there right beside him. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.